You probably already knew this, but if you want to travel to the Middle East, don't fly Egyptair. There is no reason to. There's no region on Earth where you have such a heavy concentration of incredible airlines. From Turkish to Gulf Air to Qatar Airways to Emirates, there is so much quality. And then there's Egyptair, the equivalent of the middle seat of Middle Eastern airlines. I'm sure you're curious what the experience is like, and if so, you've come to the right place. New York to Cairo, let's go. I'm Nonstop Dan, a half Swede and half American who's been obsessed with airplanes for as long as I can remember. Nonstop Dan is all about trying to get as much value as possible with my miles, or when those are running low, my money, and then spreading the word so you guys get optimal value and can enjoy your travels to the max. This Egyptian travel day starts in a rainy New York City. Oscar and I had just come back from our 96th country of El Salvador, and we're heading onwards to our 97th country of Cyprus via Cairo and Amman. The rainy day traffic was so bad we made it to the airport 5 minutes before check-in closed. There wasn't a person inside at that point, and the check-in screens weren't even lit, but they checked us in without an issue and we made our way into treacherous territory, JFK Terminal 1 security. Yeah. The security check here is always a bit of a nightmare, and Egyptair isn't a member of TSA PreCheck. But eventually we made it through and headed to the gate where our beautiful Boeing 777-300ER was boarding. Their Boeing 777-300ER comes in a dated configuration, which is great news in economy since they still have a spacious 333 configuration, and bad news in business since it's still in a 232 configuration. That's right, there's a middle seat in business class in 2022. There are 7 rows for a total of 49 seats, and every single one was taken. As always, I like to sit toward the back of the cabin for privacy, so Oscar and I were in seat 15A and 15C. Yes, row 15. But we were actually in the 7th row. You'll want to try pre-selecting seats at any cost to avoid the middle seat. I called Egyptair to do it and was on hold for 2 hours, but I'd say it was still worth it. So what do these seats look like on board? Let's find out. Today's trip would take 10 hours to Cairo, but it would not end there as we had a 2-hour connection and then another flight to Amman, Jordan. It was all booked one way for 70,000 Air Canada Aeroplan miles per person at the time and very minimal taxes. I bought those points on sale for 1.34 US cents each, meaning this ticket cost a little under $1,000 per person one way. The question is, was that worth it for Egyptair? You know what is so worth it? Upgrading your sneakers to waterproof. Before you skip this, hear me out. Today's video sponsor Vezi just sent me the most awesome looking everyday sneakers that are jam-packed with the most amazing features. From being extremely stretchy so they feel more like a sock around your foot than a shoe, to being super lightweight and having incredible grip for all types of uses. When I say they're waterproof, I really mean it, and their special material regulates temperature to ensure your feet are never too hot or too cold. Vezis are 100% vegan, with each pair made with 30% less water, 600% less energy consumption, and 97% less material trim waste. With the rainy and muddy season coming up in many parts of the world, now is the time to get a pair of enhanced sneakers, and by tapping my special link at the top of the description or going to vezi.com/nonstopdan, you'll get a full $25 off each pair of Vezi shoes using code NonstopDan. If you live in North America, you enjoy a 90-day period of return or exchanges on your shoes, so there's no risk to trying them out. Again, that's vezi.com/nonstopdan. Let's fly to Egypt! Welcome on board this 111-year-old Boeing 777. Oh, sorry, I added a 1 there. This 11-year-old 777. Listen, I'm not going to pretend that boo-hoo I suffered in this terrible, disgusting seat, because I really didn't. It's not uncomfortable in any way, just wildly uncompetitive in 2022, especially that middle seat. Our seats in the last row were loaded with a pillow and blanket on boarding and didn't seem too dirty compared to the previous Egyptair flight I took in early 2020. One armrest has all the seat controls which recline your seat, but there's something pretty crazy about the bed that I'll tell you later on at bedtime. The most important thing besides sleep in business class to me and most people is the ability to work unobstructed, and luckily the seats have both power ports and USB charging to help with that, although the lack of in-flight Wi-Fi might set you back. There's a little storage bin by the center armrest, which had plenty of space for my stuff, along with this little basket of sorts under the video monitor and this shoe storage below. There's also this, should I say slit, that contains the headphones. Well, the barely functioning headphones, that is. The audio quality is bad. Okay, now for a small series of positive notes. Although the crew wasn't amazing in any way, it seemed the airline has some standard practices that are pretty nice. For example, after boarding is completed and before takeoff, the crew closes the curtain behind business class to provide more privacy. As we prepared for departure, the safety video played, and my goodness. If only Egyptair put the same type of budget and effort into their passenger experience as they did with this incredible safety video. How beautiful is this? As that played, I noticed something else. All the video monitors have privacy screens, which makes it virtually impossible to see what anyone else is watching. Another great little thing for added privacy. Naturally, that privacy doesn't mitigate the fact that these are among the least private business class seats out there, and the quote-unquote privacy partition is about as effective as Lufthansa's attempt to convince us that banning air tags is in the interest of safety and not because they hate their customers. The pre-departure service commenced with hot, moist towels, except mine was room temperature and dry by the time they gave it to me. Speaking of dry, one of the biggest complaints about Egyptair is that they don't serve any alcohol on board for religious reasons. The pre-departure beverages were a choice of orange or guava juice. I chose the latter, which was super tasty. More on the drinks later with dinner. We pushed back about 45 minutes behind schedule and then stood in that spot for 20 minutes a la JFK before taxiing to the runway and eventually leaving the gloom behind us for the burning sun of the Middle East. After takeoff, the crew came by without a word and closed everyone's window shades. That makes sense given that they didn't want people to be woken up later in the flight when the sun rose, but it's a little bit of a strange way of going about it. The whole flight so far had been quite entertaining from a research perspective. Speaking of entertainment, let's check out the IFE. The seat has this large, decent quality screen with a perfectly average selection of movies and below average TV show offering, although I imagine they have a better Arabic selection. One thing Egyptair does really well is their amenity kit, which contains a lot of nice stuff from a pen to a hairbrush, a shoehorn, these fancy looking toiletries, and sticky socks. Now, let me tell you the simultaneously funny and sad story that is Egyptair's meal service. There are no menus whatsoever on board, so when drinks were being served, I asked what they had. They had juice, water, coffee, and tea. Just because you're a dry airline doesn't mean you have to have a completely boring drink selection. Why not offer mocktails, iced teas, other sparkling beverages, or even non-alcoholic champagne or wine like some of my favorite Middle Eastern airlines? Next, the crew brought us our meal, which I'm so bummed I didn't get a video of in the midst of the shock, but we were served steaks. I told the crew, sorry, we pre-ordered vegan meals, and she said, yes, this is not meat. Yes it is. Her response, oh, and then she picked it up and walked away. This was our actual meal, which was what I'd expect from catering out of JFK, basically a war on any sort of quality or flavor. There were no vegetarian options on board for those who didn't pre-order, so the poor Indian couple next to us was left without food. After dinner, it was time to sleep. I'll show you the bed and all in daylight when I wake up. See you then, guys. Whoa, I woke up 6 hours later having slept surprisingly well. That's despite the seat not being lie flat. It actually has quite a steep angle downwards, which is fine for back sleepers, but feels pretty strange if you sleep on your side like me. The combo of the comfy bedding and late departure meant I still slept well, and I guess it was lucky I didn't see how filthy this part of the seat was until after I woke up. I was worried the cabin would be too hot to sleep given the lack of individual air vents, but the temperature was perfect throughout the flight. At this point, I couldn't wait for breakfast as I was still dreaming of the fantastically glamorous dinner experience. This meal was equally JFK-esque and did the job. Strangely, after the meal, they gave us these snacks. Is this the Egyptair farewell gift? Before we land, let's check out the lavatories. This shot is from the beginning of the flight, so it got a lot dirtier after 10 hours. Passengers from economy kept coming into business class to talk to their friends and often took the chance to use the business class bathrooms. Soon enough, we landed in Cairo with a stunning approach over the Nile before touching down in the massive sandbox. The transfer process when you already have your boarding pass for your connection isn't too complicated in Cairo, and about 15 minutes after landing, we were already heading to the Egyptair lounge. I'll let these videos speak for themselves. I've transferred in Cairo countless times over the years, but usually on separate tickets, since there are so many good deals that used to originate here, and those transfers used to always be a nightmare. So today, in comparison, is completely different and so much easier. Ironically, our 45-minute flight from Cairo to Amman was on a far nicer aircraft than the prior 10-hour flight with a relatively new Airbus A320neo. We had a quick bus ride out to the aircraft and got on board this beautiful representation of the new Egyptair. The seat had storage, all the power ports you'd need, generous recline, and a huge entertainment screen, which sadly had the same amount of content as the previous flight. There was boarding music, hotel service, a cute pre-departure drink service, and life seemed sweet. There was also Wi-Fi on board, but it didn't work. Now this is all great, but again, in comparison to neighboring competitors, this and the subsequent flight experience you're about to see are not exactly impressive. There's a meal offered on the short flight, which would be noteworthy had the food not tasted like food poisoning on a plate. On second thought, I guess that's kind of noteworthy in and of itself. Just as on the previous flight, there were no exciting drinks to accompany the meal, alcoholic or not. With that, I was excited to get off and enjoy 24 hours in Jordan, one of my favorite countries in the Middle East. Before our glamorous connection on Ryanair to Cyprus the next day. So in conclusion, it's really sad that Egyptair can't be a reflection of their safety video. Classy, high quality, well thought through. The experience is not terrible, and of course it's far preferable to flying economy or even premium economy, but for the price, you can usually get a whole lot better on other airlines. So unless you're looking for a direct flight to Egypt and there are no other options, this isn't something I'd seek out. The soft product is pretty much on par with most European airlines, while the seat really lags behind. On that note, thanks for tuning in to see what Egyptair is like. Let me know in the comments if you're a fan of them, and if so, what your good experiences have been. And until I see you all for the next video, fly safe.